Hello, and welcome to this month's edition of Worcester Public Library's Coming Soon titles. I'm Taylor, and this is my colleague,
Joy.
Today, as usual, I will be presenting 3 fiction titles, and Joy will focus on the nonfiction. All of these will be available in print, and hopefully at least eventually in ebook or audiobook format as well. So, shall we get into it?
Yes. Who goes first?
I can go first if you'd like.
All right.
Okay. So, my first title is If I Survive You by Jonathan Escoffery. Escoffery's vibrant and varied debut, a linked collection told by different family members, chronicles the turbulent fate of a Jamaican-American family in Miami. We meet Christopher, also known as Topper, and Sonia. Both were born and grew up in Jamaica in the 1950s. They met, fell in love, had a child, but with the political turmoil, they moved to Miami with their son Delano and ended up having a second son, Trelawney. But America, as the couple and their 2 children learn, is far from the promised land. Excluded from society as Black immigrants, the family pushes on through Hurricane Andrew and later the 2008 recession, living in a house so cursed that the pet fish launches itself out of its own tank rather than stay. But even as things fall apart, the family remains motivated, often to its own detriment by what their younger son Trelawney calls the exquisite, racking compulsion to survive. The family topples over when Topper heads to Jamaica after the death of his parents and in a moment of weakness makes a decision that impacts his family greatly. Topper and Sonia separate. Sonia gets Trelawney and Topper gets Delano. With the family falling out, we see how this impacts each member uniquely throughout their entire lives. Trelawney is constantly having an identity crisis. He doesn't look or sound Jamaican. He looks Dominican but can't speak Spanish, and other Black people don't know which box to put him in. He doesn't understand his Jamaican father's wishes, and he wished that he could call the island his home. Delano is exactly his father's son. He decides to skip university and with a loan from his own father, opens a business, but while he got a strong start in life, ended up with a wife and 2 children, with the second recession, will he end up like his dad? With vibrant lyricism, sly commentary, and contagious laughter, Escoffery's debut unravels what it means to be in between homes and cultures in a world at the mercy of capitalism and whiteness. If I Survive You, Escoffery announces himself as a prodigious storyteller in a class of his own.
Wow. Another work of promise there.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, my first choice for this month is Teaching White Supremacy, America's Democratic Ordeal and the Forging of Our National Identity by Donald Iacovone. Okay, everyone, brace yourselves and listen to the following quotation. It may just shock you. As for Sambo being a derogatory word for African Americans used frequently in the past. As for Sambo, whose suffering moved abolitionists to wrath and tears, there is some reason to believe that he suffered less than any other class in the South by its peculiar institution. Although brought to America by force, the incurably optimistic Negro soon became attached to the country and devoted to his white folks. Make you cringe? It should. And it may surprise you to learn that these words were not penned by a pre-Civil War pro-slavery apologist, nor by a contemporary raging white supremacist. They were taken from The Growth of the American Republic, a classic American textbook co-authored by eminent American historians Henry Steele Commager and Samuel Eliot Morison, which was first published in 1937. This is just one example included in renowned historian Donald Iacavone's new work, Teaching White Supremacy, in which he argues that through textbooks, insidious racist ideologies as well as blatant falsehoods have been transmitted to generations of American schoolchildren. Iacovone should know. In the process of writing this work, He examined hundreds of K through 12 and college textbooks compiled in the 19th and 20th centuries and concluded that in most of them, slavery and its legacy of cruelty and injustice were either ignored or soft-pedaled in the interest of appeasing conservative public opinion. And not just Southern public opinion. Iacovone excoriates Northern historians and educators like Commager and Morrison for promoting racial stereotypes, embracing the myth of the Confederate lost cause, and implicitly or explicitly propounding the idea that to be American, truly American, is to be white. He writes that the older textbooks are like syringes that injected the toxin of white supremacy into young minds. Iacovone does say that textbook editors in recent years have made a concerted effort to produce works that reflect a more nuanced and accurate view of our American past. But he asks, will teachers be able to impart an honest perspective on our shared history in the face of the bitter resistance of many who are invested in maintaining the old white-centric narrative, unchanged and at all cost? Teachers, he says, are afraid. Librarians, for that matter, are afraid. Author Henry Louis Gates calls teaching white supremacy the most profoundly original cultural history in recent memory. And Library Journal and Kirkus gave it starred reviews. Publishers Weekly, in its starred review, called the book monumental, a troubling and powerful history, essential reading.
Wow.
Wow.
Heavy.
Heavy. Wait till I get to my next one.
Oh, okay. Well, with my next one, we have another debut novel. Bobby Finger delves into the intricate... Oops, sorry. I should probably say my title. That'd be helpful.
You probably should, actually.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah.
So, my second title is The Old Place by Bobby Finger. In his first novel, Bobby Finger delves into the intricate entanglements of a small Texas town about a retired schoolteacher whose decade-old secret threatens to come to light and send shockwaves through the community. Now, don't expect cowboys and saloon gunfights from Finger, who grew up in Texas. Instead, witness the small town living and everyone knowing your business whether you want them to or not. Gossip is the currency here, and much of the buzz is around the annual picnic happening very soon. Billington, Texas is a place where nothing changes. Well, almost nothing. For the first time in nearly 4 decades, Mary Alice Roth is not getting ready for the first day of school at Billington High. A few months into her semi-forced retirement, Mary Alice doesn't know how to fill her days. With just as much bark as bite, the locals put up with her mostly out of pity. At least there's Ellie, who stops by each morning for coffee, and whose reemergence in Mary Alice's life is the one thing soothing the sting of retirement. Mary Alice and Ellie were a pair since the day Ellie moved in next door. They're both single mothers, Mary Alice widowed and Ellie divorced. 24 years ago, Mary Alice's husband drowned in what she hopes everyone assumes was an accident and not a suicide. They don't. With sons the same age was a pleasant coincidence, but they were forever linked when they lost the boys, one right after the other. In 2002, her son Michael died suddenly under mysterious circumstances. An obituary appeared, but there was no funeral. Mary Alice has never discussed Michael's death, even with her best friend Ellie. And Ellie's son Kenny, Michael's best friend, died weeks before Michael in a car crash the morning after high school graduation. Years later, the two are working their way back into a comfortable friendship. Finger handles the nature of Kenny and Michael's friendship and the town's reaction with unexpected nuance, showing the problematic confusion in how people perceive themselves and others. What could have turned melodramatic becomes an exploration of the danger of unnecessary secrets. A surprising page-turner, homey, funny, yet with dark corners of anger and grief.
Huh.
Should be a good one.
I guess. Well, as promised, my next title is also pretty weighty and a little bit dark. It is entitled The Chaos Machine, the inside story of how social media rewired our minds and our world by New York Times journalist Max Fisher. Just imagine if you will, a world in which information and opinion could be shared instantaneously, unimpeded by distance, national boundaries, language, or the constraints imposed by government or big media. Well, Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, and many others, imagined just that. But nobody, no matter how prescient, could have imagined the full impact that social media would have on our cultural and political landscape over a span of less than 2 decades. Now, in his scathing debut titled The Chaos Machine, journalist Max Fisher explores the myriad ills wrought by social media. He describes how sophisticated algorithms and targeted engagement techniques designed to trigger feel-good dopamine releases in the brain keep users coming back for more. And he says that the promotion and manufacture of moral outrage are inherent to the system, not just regrettable glitches. While Facebook and other social media giants have rules intended to exclude inflammatory posts, they have, to say the least, been enforced inconsistently and ineffectively. Too little, too late. And the result? Well, we've all seen the results: the proliferation of hate speech, the eruption of the craziest of conspiracy theories, and the overall breakdown of consensus in civil discourse. What to do? Fisher goes on to say that social media has become so toxic that we should just, are you ready for this one? Shut it all down.
Yeah.
Or at the very least call for a complete overhaul of social media platforms. And I agree with you. To me, that's a wonderful fantasy.
Yes.
I'm not a fan.
Well, me neither.
But I have to say, good luck with that one. Much of the information that Fisher provides in The Chaos Machine is neither new nor surprising. However, he has created a masterful synthesis, a kind of one-stop shop, in the words of one reviewer. Kirkus calls this book an often riveting, disturbing examination of the social media labyrinth. And PW says that it is a well-researched, damning picture of just what happens online and behind that curtain.
Wow. I already love this book.
What did I say? 2 social problems, 2 critical social problems, 2 books. How many minutes did I spend? 10 minutes. Next one will be lighter, I promise.
Okay, perfect. And so I will start with my final piece of fiction. We have The Witch and the Tsar by Olesya Salnikova-Gilmore. Set in Russia in the 16th century, this decades-long tale begins deep in the woods where we meet Yaga, a half-goddess, half-mortal who desires to heal and help others with her spells and potions. Now, I know what you're thinking. She's not Baba Yaga, a vicious witch who flies on a mortar and pestle and eats children. As an immortal who has lived for hundreds of years, but not aged beyond the prime of life, Yaga is intelligent, beautiful, and has the ability to communicate with animals. She uses the earth around her to create magical potions to help the Russian people she loves so dearly. Those people once revered her, then spurned her and dubbed her Baba Yaga, spreading horrible tales about her, distrusting her, and threatening her. Hurt and betrayed, she retreats to a life of solitude, aiding the mortals who come to her, but no longer seeking them out. She lives in the forest with her 3 faithful companions, an owl, a wolf, and her feisty Izbushka, a hut that stands on chicken legs. But when her old friend Anastasia, now the wife of Tsar Ivan, soon to be the Terrible, is suffering from a mysterious illness and arrives at the forest desperate for her protection, Yaga realizes the fate of Russia is tied to Anastasia's, and she must step out of the shadows to protect the land she loves. Yaga is determined to protect Russia from Ivan and all those who see to its destruction. She embarks on a journey to do so along with a varied and colorful cast of characters, both mortal and immortal, many of whom the reader will recognize from history or tales of Russian folklore, or perhaps will be introduced to for the first time. Among these people, Yaga finds acceptance, betrayal, enemies, faithful friends who become more like family, and even the opportunity for authentic romantic love.
Whoa!
Gotta end it on a romance.
Of course, always. Sounds good, though.
It does.
Well, my final choice for this month is, as promised, lighter than my first two. Title is This Is What It Sounds Like, What the Music You Love Says About You by Susan Rogers and Ogie Ogas, which has been named one of the most anticipated books of 2022 by Boston Globe and Literary Hub. Susan Rogers is, by any measure, a remarkable woman. Beginning her career as a humble audio technician in Los Angeles, she rose to become Prince's chief engineer for Purple Rain, and then went on to create other #1 hits, including One Week for the Bare Naked Ladies. That would be enough for most of us, but apparently not for Susan Rogers. She is now an award-winning professor of cognitive neuroscience at the Berklee School of Music. In her new book, This Is What It Sounds Like, Rogers and her co-author, neuroscientist Ogie Ogas, take us on a journey into both the science and the soul of music and provide insight into why we love the music that we love. And let's face it, we all love music. Why do your favorite songs move you? And conversely, your best friend's favorite songs do not. Rogers explains that each of us carries a unique listening profile based on how we respond to 7 key dimensions present in any song. Are you ready for this? They are melody, lyrics, rhythm, timbre, authenticity, realism, and novelty. She says that we all have a genetic propensity to appreciate certain kinds of music more than others. But experience and exposure also play a key role. While exploring the science of music and the brain, Rogers uses her insider's ear to illuminate the work of Prince, Lana Del Rey, Frank Sinatra, Kanye West, and many others. And, intriguingly, she shares her own personal playlist of the songs that have helped define her life. Rogers encourages readers to cast aside all snobbery and embrace a diversity of musical styles and genres. We cannot all be musicians, she says, but we can all be musical, simply by being active, passionate, open-minded, and open-hearted listeners. PW calls This Is What It Sounds Like a pitch-perfect deep dive into the power of music, combining erudite analysis and plenty of soul. This will leave music lovers rapt. I have 2 things to say. I'm a music lover.
All right.
Almost all types. So I can hardly wait for this. And the second thing I have to say is I think you and I should break into the first 2 lines of Bare Naked Ladies One Week. How about it? Is that a no?
It's going to be a no from me.
Okay.
But
disappointing, but I understand.
all right. I'm sorry. All right. Well, that is it for this month's new releases. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next time.
See you later, fellow readers.
Bye-bye.